Confined space entry. Me being an old firefighter, one of my favorites. Too fat and old to do it now, but it is very important and can be a very dangerous situation. We do our very best that if we have to do a confined space, we make it as safe as possible, but there will be times that it will be a permit required confined space and it will be hazardous air in there or no oxygen, lower levels of oxygen. And at that point in time, we refer back to our confined space and we have trained our people on it. A lot of fun training. The last series of training, we not only trained on entry confined space, but we trained on if something goes wrong, how to rescue that person or persons that's in there to get them out if something goes wrong safely and quickly. And this is one of those issues that if something goes wrong and you're not prepared for it, you won't get a second chance. A lot of fatals in the world involved in confined space. And we've done a really good job of limiting those or making them a lot safer by taking a little extra time, allowing more air in or opening it up to replace inside the plants and baghouses and not too many in the quarries, the tunnels, sort of confined space. But it's not a hazardous situation, but at any given moment, it could be, because you got equipment running above it. They could have a fuel leak or hydraulic leak and run into that, and then you have you've made it a permit confined space because it's become a hazardous atmosphere inside that. But we're prepared for that, and we will do more and more of this as we go. Especially learning on the rescue part of it. Part of my master plan here is to have more rescue capabilities and be better trained at that as we go forward. So
self-rescue.
Yeah, self-rescue. We can do that. We have ongoing training. Or will. COVID's kind of gotten away with that, but that's our plan, is to be more medically trained, have more people in case something does go wrong. We upgraded our first aid kits and trauma kits and all those, that we're prepared for that. But we plan it from the start. We don't do any confined space unless we do a very extensive risk assessment on that and look for other ways to do it without it being a confined space entry. And many times we've been able to engineer the hazard completely out, and that's always the best case, that no one's in a dangerous situation. But anytime you do a confined space entry, that is a high level of danger, hazards, and we do our very best to control them. Everywhere we've got is the atmospheric meters that we can check, and we use those quite often throughout the year in many different ways, even in the paving industry, and we've used them in tunnels and bridges to make sure that they're safe to pave through. Rogers, our concrete guys, use it a lot because they're down in the ditches. You don't really got to be back inside a culvert. You know, there is stuff out here that just lays low to the ground that we may not see. It's gas, you can't see, but we use those meters to make it safe, and then we have the ability to ventilate them and make them safe. And
make sure they're calibrated too. You've seen that, you know, if you can't calibrate them, if you don't know how, then you can send them back to the manufacturer and they'll do it for you.
Bump test periodically on them. We've got the good meters where you just hit a button and bump test everything on it. And if you operators, you get unfamiliar or you forget how to do it, it's on YouTube. It's step by step. Just pull it up real quick and go through it. Get a hold of me or Ernie or Raymond or some of Roger's guys that's doing it to chase. But YouTube's a great tool for that. Even can dial in the exact meter we use and how to calibrate it and bump test it, and actually use it.
Yeah, similar to lockout, tagout, each of our locations, again, quarry, asphalt plant, shop, should have confined space rules in place and a program in place. So each confined space at every location should be identified. There should be a procedure for going in that space, whether it requires a permit or not. There's still a risk assessment element to going in a confined space. So. Like Chase mentioned, self-rescue. JL talked about monitoring the air. There are risks involved. So again, risk assessment first, confined space entry, confined space permit, confined space procedure. Second, going in if there's a need.
Working in heights, fall protection. Rocky, he's kind of our fall protection guru, does an excellent job training, and has come up and found the harnesses with the self-rescue capabilities, and we're trying to switch over. I think we've just about everywhere we switched over to those, to where if the person falls and he's not injured and at himself, he can self-rescue himself, and everybody around him knows how to help him rescue. Being that he's not so high that it'll still work. If we're going to go at above those capabilities, we need to team up with the local first responders, that they have the capabilities if we have to rescue someone from that. I think we've done that at Pine and Elk, that's available, and other places. Those are probably the highest ones we got. There's some of the asphalt plants that could happen when you're up on the silo. But if at all possible, we try to use equipment, the man lifts, but always with the man lift, you're using a harness that's inside that, and it attached to the appropriate, that the engineer that built that said that's where that's attached, not to the handrail or not wrapped around the boom or whatever. Each one will have its an attachment point. That's where the fall protection is attached. As throughout our plants, our Ernie's and our Raymonds and our TJs and those guys show you where the appropriate place is, and a lot of them are marked that are tie-off points that are engineered safely as a safe place to tie off. It's 100% tie off. We use 2 lanyards while you're moving. One is for the move and you're still tied off. You're always 100% tied off. And we train on it. We make sure that everybody gets the harness that they're comfortable with. I can show you a bunch that we've over the years took out of service, and people were using them that I wouldn't want to use. Just pay attention to Rocky's training that he's done of inspecting them. The biggest part of that is inspecting your harness, just like doing the pre-shift on your equipment. It's the first thing you do before each use is a thorough inspection of it, and if it don't look right, you don't use it. We'll get another one if there's something wrong with it. Take it out of service.
Not only harnesses, you got, ladders and walkways, and especially for ladders, you make sure they're clear and free of obstruction. Make sure there's not a bunch of stuff piled up around it and debris, that's common, especially spillage around the ladders. Make sure they're free, clean, open.
And as you guys are out doing your job and you're having to use fall protection, and you get to a point that you're not comfortable with where you got to tie off, or it don't make sense, and you realize it's not right, just call us, and most of the time we can engineer a way where it's safe. There's all kinds of new stuff that comes out that we can retrofit to different channels and different types of steel, to where it works. The retractable lanyards are pretty awesome for some of the work we do. And there's different variations of those. So never, if you're not comfortable and you think it can be done better, always let us know, and we'll get that, or if we have to go outside the company. One thing about CRH is there's a whole library of stuff out there we can look up. There's lots of people. One email out there to the safety group and we will get the answer that we need. That's the great thing about working this company. There's plenty of folks out there that has that knowledge, that's done that kind of work. If we run across something that we don't quite understand or how to fix it, we will get the answer for you. Don't never take a chance. Well, I'm only going to do this once and it'll probably be all right. We don't want to do it that way. We want to make sure we're safe 100% of the time, every time.
And Chase mentioned ladders, and how to use those and what we should be looking for when we do use them. But ladders are really a last resort. We've had so many people fall from a ladder over the years. We really want to have a ladder's last approach. And if we do have to use a ladder, like Chase said, we're going to make sure that the area is clear. We've got a really good foundation of where to set it up and where to put it into practice. And that your ladder should have a weight rating on it, or a capacity rating is what they say, and there should be a sticker on the side of the ladder to denote what that is. So we had a pretty bad injury a few years ago about someone who used a ladder that wasn't really meant for what they were doing and ended up collapsing and they ended up with a broken leg. So using the right ladder for the right application is also important. We touched on 3 points of contact, a little bit ago, and it's the same thing for working at heights. We've got to make sure that we are holding on with both hands and our feet while we're climbing, and again, getting down on the ground, both feet on the ground before we release with our hands and step away.
Lifting operations. We use a lot of boom trucks around the plants and quarries, and I know sometimes we're put in a position where we have to use maybe an end load or a backhoe to lift something. I don't like doing those. We've had injuries of using a loader to lift something. One thing, using a loader is it takes a exceptionally good operator to be able to lift something straight up using a loader. Because the arc of the boom, the arc of the bucket, very talented operator do that, and a really good piece of equipment. So we try not to do that with loaders. We don't want to take a chance out there, and I know that there's times that you have no choice to use a backhoe to lift something up or loader, but that's where the extra risk assessment comes in. If it's something we're doing a lot, just call in. You're not comfortable with it, we can rent boom trucks. We have some of our own and do it safely. We have people that are really good operators at them, and of course the big lifts running the plants, we contract that out to crane companies, and we just back off. They do their own rigging and their own lifting. That's what they get paid to do. That's they're professionals at it. But you can get hurt lifting a spare tire off of one of these loaders or something up into the truck. I mean, it's so easy, using the wrong chain or the wrong strap. A simple lift can get somebody hurt. You may think you've done it 100 times, and that's when something goes wrong. So every time you use a piece of equipment to lift something, we try to make loaders into forklifts. Sometimes they're not, unless they come with forks attached to them, they're not a forklift. And then we tend to make a loader lift more than it's designed to lift, or an excavator. Some excavator operators are good enough, they can put it right on the money where you want it. But from our call yesterday, the one thing about lifting operations that there is never forget is if you're lifting something, and it don't matter if it's your lunch bucket up into a piece of equipment up high up, or even something around a plant, the safest thing that you can make it 100% safe is there's no one under it or around it that can get struck by it if the rope breaks or the equipment fails. So, and you never lift across people, over people, because we can make it 100% safe if there's no one there to get hit by it. And it's, sometimes we fail to do that, or we get tunnel vision and we don't see that there's people underneath the load, so we never do that in any type of work we do, whether it's a forklift or a backhoe or a crane or boom truck or what it may be. And the correct straps and chains.
Yeah, correct straps. And if we are using chains, to lift something, they have to be designated lifting chains. You can't just use an old logging chain to lift something. Lifting chains have the capacity tags on them, what they're capable to lift with, and they've got to be inspected prior to each use, and you have to keep a record of that inspection monthly, thereafter.